In the narrow Torres Strait that links the Coral Sea with the Arafura Sea and the Carpentaria Gulf, a 16-year-old took his last journey on Earth. Little did he know that in the shallow blue waters, a predator was lurking. Hit like and subscribe. This is Fierce. The island of Saibai is one of the few islands that create the Torres Strait archipelago and is situated only 4 kilometers away from the coast of Papua New Guinea. The low-lying island is extremely prone to flooding and rising sea levels, especially in heavy rain seasons. Consequently, its geography is splendid, tropical, and heavy on the swamplands. With only a small portion of the island being inhabited by indigenous Australian people, the Saibaian community is very tight-knit. According to the 2016 census, only around 465 people lived on the island. The lush greenery and crystal-clear waters don't have a lot to offer, but fishing and hunting, with the occasional agriculture when the island isn't flooded. What saves many islanders is their strong trade ties with their neighbors, the Dawan and Boigu Islands. Edward Baidham Morrison Warrisum, or Baidham after his cultural name, lived on the coast of the Cape York Peninsula his entire life. In a small house close to the splendid beaches of Cairns, Baidham and his 8 siblings lived with only their mother. From a very young age, Baidham learned from his mother and his close community how to sustain his family and how to survive the sea's hidden dangers. Passionate about studying and sports, he was a member of the rugby league club Edmonton Storm from far north Queensland. He never missed an event, even though it wasn't always easy to make it to where his rugby club played. This, however, didn't stop him from following his dreams of one day becoming a great rugby player. Nevertheless, destiny had other plans for the 16-year-old. On an April morning, Baidham and his 13-year-old cousin embarked on a journey that would soon prove to be their most treacherous one yet. Fueled by adventure and adrenaline, the 2 boys decided to give in to the embrace of the sea and go on a little fishing trip. The vast sea was comforting for Baidham, and he felt he already knew all of its secrets. The area they were traveling through wasn't known to be too dangerous for small voyages, especially in clear skies. So they made their way to the coast and set sail on a dinghy that only fit the 2 of them, on a journey from which only one of them would return unharmed. The day started out great. The sun was shining warmly on the Cairns coastline. The breeze wasn't too strong, the sky was clear, and the water was as tranquil as any sea could get. The beginning of their voyage wasn't at all eventful. The 2 young boys left early in the morning so as to have enough time to turn back before sundown. Their goal was to cross the Torres Strait, or at least go as far as possible, take in the beautiful scenery, and come back. If they were to catch some fish on their way, that would have been a bonus. The long journey they embarked on would soon turn sour when the engine of their little dinghy sputtered and eventually died. The sun was barely out, and they were not even close to the coast. Without any oars on board of their tiny dinghy, they tried to divert the boat using their hands. The result wasn't a happy one. It seemed like they didn't move an inch. The waves carried them away, inching them closer and closer to Saibai Island. On their way, not even a boat was in sight that could save them. In the back of his mind, Baidham remembered that the Torres Strait was known for something extremely scary. Its shallow waters covered coral reefs that could make their journey to the shore even more difficult than it already was. He knew that if no one would see them soon, they would have to swim to safety. As they got closer and closer to the Saibaian shore, reality started to set in. Their only chance to survive the remaining leg of their journey to safety was to abandon the dinghy and swim almost 500 meters toward the shore. As Baidham presented his plan to his little cousin, the waves suddenly started to become bigger and bigger, almost knocking them out of the boat. Uncertainty was filling the air. The clock was ticking, and there was no more room for hesitation. Holding tightly the little hand of his cousin, they jumped in. Although the water in Torres Strait isn't very deep, with a depth of only 7 to 15 meters, it was difficult for the 13-year-old to keep his feet and arms moving in order to stay afloat. In those moments, he imagined he was simply swimming along the beach in Cairns, where he grew up. He imagined that, at the end of this entire debacle, he would be welcomed with the warm embrace of his beach towel. But now his responsibility was to keep his young cousin alive. He couldn't have lived on if he knew something had happened to the 13-year-old boy. Slowly but surely, they were getting closer and closer to the shore. With only a few meters left, the 13-year-old boy used his last traces of energy and pushed himself to exhaustion in order to touch land faster. Eventually, he was safe. With his entire body aching and his lungs burning, he collapsed on the sandy beach and looked around for Baidham. There was no trace of him. Not in the water, not on land. Nowhere. At that very moment, Baidham was fighting for his life in the jaws of a hidden predator, a crocodile. When the 16-year-old saw that his cousin had managed to touch land, he let out a sigh of relief. Happiness flooded him as they were now one step closer to being rescued. As he was battling the now gentle waves, he felt something grazing his leg. Thinking that it was probably a coral reef, as he was getting closer and closer to the shore and the water was more shallow, he wasn't alarmed at first. However, the second time, he screamed in pain. A 4-meter crocodile followed his prey, motivated by primal hunger that only human flesh could possibly satisfy. In a heartbeat, Baidham's world collapsed around him as he was plunged into the jaws of the crocodile. His little cousin was too far away to see him struggling in the shallow waters that surrounded him, so he knew his desperate attempts to set himself free from the ferocious beast were probably useless. As pain and terror flooded his mind, he simply couldn't believe that the relaxing voyage he envisioned earlier would turn into his last moments alive. In a surge of power, the crocodile dragged Baidham under the water and mauled him until his last breath. As people were hurrying on the Saibaian shore to help the 13-year-old survivor, Baidham's body was left disfigured and floating peacefully until it was finally recovered several hours later in the afternoon. What the 16-year-old boy left behind is a single mother, 8 saddened siblings, and an entire community that was unable to do anything but mourn him. His mother, Kimana Kusu, urged people who knew him or read his story to help her face the tragedy and support her family during the difficult time she is now facing through a GoFundMe. For the curious, humble boy who was always smiling and eager to help anyone who crossed his path, on April 18, 2024, life was too cruel and the ending to his story came too early.